Let's call this meeting to order, the regular meeting for November 18th. Roll call, please, Becky.
Kurt Smith.
Here.
Gustafson.
Here.
Perry.
Here.
Brabner. Mayor.
I am here. Our invocation and pledge will be led by Councilmember Shane Perry. If you'll please rise.
Father, thank you for the opportunity to be here in the great city of Spanish Fort. Thank you for our citizens and our first responders that act on our behalf every day. We pray for safety for them. Father, pray for our elderly, that they are protected. And Father, just we want to stand up for them. Father, thank you for giving us the wisdom to make decisions for this city. Father, just thank you again for this great day. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. I ask for the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, work session November 4, 2024, regular meeting November 4, 2024, work session November 6, 2024, and the work session November 13, 2024. Are there any corrections? If not, stand approved as written. Committee reports, Ms. Gaines.
No report, sir.
Mr. Connor.
No further reports from the work session, Mayor.
Chief Barber.
Yes, Mayor, I did want to report, since our last meeting, we received notification that we received a grant for $123,000 from the Department of Homeland Security. No match to the city. It will allow us to buy equipment that will allow virtual training for scenario-based situations for our officers, a really significant piece of equipment. Very proud that we received that grant for $123,000.
Thank you, Chief. I know you've been requesting that piece of equipment for a few years, and I knew I had faith in you that you'd be able to find it in a grant where we wouldn't have to have any match money, which is perfect. Thank you. Chief Few?
No report.
Mr. Burrow?
No report, Mayor.
Casey?
No report, Mayor.
Junior Counsel?
Junior
Carl?
Counsel, well, I'm happy to report that we had our very first ever Community Street Fair Day. It had some nonprofits there. It was completely run by the Junior Council. They put it together, they organized it, they ran it. It had various vendors out there, and from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., there was never, not one moment that somebody was not out there visiting one of these vendors. Vendors went home with less stuff, and the Junior Council, thanks to Fox 10, they got interviewed on Fox 10, so they got thrown out of their comfort zone by doing that, but they learned how to organize a community-wide event, and it went off splendidly. So, yeah, kudos to the Junior City Council.
Thank you, Carl. Anything from the Planning Commission?
On October 12th, the Planning Commission met, and we forwarded a positive recommendation for a zoning change from R1 to B3 on the lot just to the west of David's Catfish. You'll be seeing that on our agenda tonight. Approved an application for a minor subdivision plat for a lot just to the west of Rockwell School. Forward a positive recommendation to amend the revisionary clause, ordinance 5196. Again, that's on our agenda for tonight, so you'll be seeing that again. Forwarded a positive recommendation to the City Council to allow storage building sales in B3 and B4 with Planning Commission approval and by right in M1 with other limitations as well. So you'll be seeing that tonight as well. Being introduced. We also approved a request for the extension of completion for work on Phase 5 of Churchill subdivision. The request was for 24 months, but we gave them, the developer, a 12-month extension.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
And one last thing, I'm sorry. We did appoint Carl Nelson, chairman, reappointed Carl Nelson as chairman of the Planning Commission, and voted Keith Vaughn as vice chair.
Thank you, sir. We'll open up the floor for public participation. Sure.
Sorry. I want to invite everybody to the Eastern Shore Lanes this Thursday, November 21st. They're holding a fundraiser, and the funds from this fundraiser go to support our library, our children's summer reading program. So if you've got nothing else to do, or you really want something really fun to do, please go to the Eastern Shore Lanes this Thursday from 5:45 to 8 and help support our library.
Thank you, Ms. Brabner. I'm going to open up the floor for public participation. This will not be for the public hearings that most people are for. We'll have those later. This is the section of the meeting where we open up the floor for just anyone in general conversation. If you do come to the microphone, please hit the speak button and give us your name and address. But Nancy, does this have to do with the rezoning, or this is not the time for that? This is for public participation, for general conversation. That will be done when we open up the floor for public hearing, please. Let's follow our order of business is all I'm asking. Okay, well, it either is or it isn't. Okay. Nancy, hit the speak button, please.
I want to object to everything, all three properties, including...
Okay, Nancy, you're out of order, please. We
We
will do this during the public hearing for those events.
This
That
is
is not
about
for
the-
what we're talking about now.
This is about the development, is it not?
Not at this point, no ma'am. Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else? All right, a few announcements before we get into the agenda, and then Nancy, you'll have a chance, okay? Congressman Jerry Curl sent out a survey to Spanish Fort residents asking for feedback on our postal service. Please fill out those surveys. We have hard copies here too if you'd like to fill those out. We've had over 750 comments sent in to the congressman. I think we're closer now than we've ever been of getting a post office, so, you know, I'm subject to dealing with the bureaucracy that is not a government department, but we're working that route. They still, and I say this all the time, but they still lose $8 billion a year, but they don't choose to run it like a business, but that's another subject. Please fill out those surveys. It would help us get that. City of Spanish Fort Public Library will be closed Thursday, November 28th and Friday, November 29th to celebrate Thanksgiving holidays. The Spanish Fort Public Library will also be closed Saturday, November 30th. Waste Pro will not pick up on Thanksgiving Day, the 28th. Customers scheduled for pickup that day will instead have their residential trash picked up on Friday, November the 29th. Customers scheduled for Friday, the 29th will have their trash picked up on Saturday, the 30th. We'll invite you to a few events we're having here at the city. Christmas the 4th events. Several events include on December the 8th, 6 p.m. is the annual Christmas tree lighting here at the community center. There will be music, a fun Christmas movie, and lots of fun. On Saturday, December 14th at 6 p.m., we'll have the annual City of Spanish Fort Christmas Parade at the Eastern Shore Center. The parade starts behind Dillard's. And then join us on December the 19th for the annual reading of The Night Before Christmas here at the Community Center at 6 o'clock. Parents are encouraged to bring their children in their pajamas and their favorite blankets. Moving to the agenda, we have no old business. Under new business, we have ordinance number 685, 2024, an ordinance amending ordinance number 5196 of the City of Spanish Fort, changing the zoning classification of certain property located near the intersection of Highway 225 and Highway 31 from R1 to B3 and from B2 to B3. Mr. Connor?
Mayor, this is a ordinance that, if approved, would amend ordinance 5196 to change the zoning classification of certain properties located near the intersection of Alabama Highway 225 and U.S. Highway 31, bearing those tax parcel numbers that you previously stated from B2 to B3. a portion, the larger portion of the property, it's approximately 18 acres, is presently zoned R1. Approximately 4 acres of the property located closer to Highway 31 as depicted on the map is presently zoned B2. The property owner has requested that all of the property be rezoned to B3 in order to allow for retail type development and other uses in that area. As on the map you'll see, the yellow is the entire parcel they've requested be rezoned. The upper portion is R1 and the light pink color is B2. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on October 14, 2024 and received public comments on proposed change in the zoning classification. And the Planning Commission forwards a negative recommendation for this rezoning request. You have scheduled a public hearing for tonight and also for December 2nd. With your permission, you may bring up to date, or would you like to do that, Mayor?
I'll take that, Mr. Connor. At the request of the developer, he has withdrawn his application for rezoning of these properties. I will say this, I love seeing this crowd. This is great. I wish we had more crowds like this. And I'm proud of the way this was approached by everyone in this room. It was done professionally. Everybody had their opinion and they have brought this forward. And the developer has decided to withdraw. Now, a couple of things. We will still have the public hearing on this item tonight, only because you're here. We will not do the public hearing we had scheduled on December the 2nd simply because it has been withdrawn. Now, understand the developer does have the right to come back at a later date. Now, if he does that, we will certainly put the signage out there. We will notify everyone. We will put it on our social media. It will have to go back through every step of our process, starting at the Planning Commission and then coming to the City Council. So understand, this may not be dead, but it's put away for a while, okay, if that makes sense to everybody. So Shannon, if you have the list for the public hearing, the names, a couple of ground rules on this. We're going to limit, because we could be here all night if everybody spoke forever. We're going to limit everybody to 3 minutes. Also, if the subjects that you're going to bring up have already been discussed by someone else, let's just don't repeat them over and over again. I think you're going to hear a lot of the same issues, which is great, okay? So,
Mayor, for clarification's sake, if I may add something there. As you mentioned, the developer also met with, I believe, the Garrison Ridge Group, Police Circle Group, has also discovered that there are some historically significant portions of the property as well as environmental areas. And so they have mentioned that what they bring back would likely be scaled down. But if they do, and if they do file an application, as the mayor mentioned, it will go all the way back to the beginning of the process, which means hearings at the Planning Commission level and then notice and everything that goes along with that. Just so that no one is confused, Mayor, the public hearing tonight that you're having now is on the portion there. And so that will be subject to another zoning application potentially in the future. But the property that's adjacent to 31 will be a separate public hearing immediately following this. So we don't want anybody to leave confused. The portion of the property that's adjacent to Highway 31, it's about 4 acres there beside the bank. It has not been withdrawn, and there will be a public hearing on that portion tonight.
thank you, Mr. Connor. Any discussion from the council before I open up the public hearing? All right, public hearing is now open. I will call names, and if you'd come forward, give us your name and address. Mr. John Argo, I believe, was first on the list here.
Mayor, can y'all hear me okay? Very good. Yes, John Argo, and a manager with Southeast Capital Partners. We were the applicant on the rezoning, and do want to compliment Spanish Fort. Y'all do have a great business climate that attracts investment, rewards investment. That's That's why we're here and interested in being part of the community. I do want to confirm we've withdrawn the application from consideration. As you know, we received input that went before Planning Commission October 14, received input there from public speakers, also from the planning commissioners. We took time and held 2 neighborhood meetings, one with Lee Circle, one with Garrison Ridge. I think they were very well attended and received public comments there. We've tried to be good listeners, and that's prompted us to withdraw it while we try to address some of the concerns that were raised by the citizens. I'm not sure exactly what we'll do, but we're going to take a hard relook at the potential of the property. It does have some historical features that might be beneficial to the community, some environmental features, and it's possible we might be able to come back at a later date and emphasize those and scale back the development. But we haven't made any conclusions at this time about that. But if we do, as Mr. Connor indicated, we've got to start all the way back at square one. We'll go through Planning Commission again, receive input, and as our common practice, we would invite the neighbors to neighborhood meetings as well with whatever we might bring back forth. But as right now, we're withdrawn, but we appreciate the consideration just the same.
Can I make a comment, please? Mr. Argo, when you come back with your new plan, please come to one of the council work session. I've never seen this plan. I've never seen what you have proposed. So if you would, after you get whatever decision you get from the Planning Commission, if it comes forward to us, please come to a work session prior to a public hearing so that we can get all the information and look at it from both sides.
Yes, I would add to that, even if your plans are just estimated, even if this is kind of, okay, this is what we're thinking, then we know what we're considering, because I think there was a lot of misinformation out there as well until those meetings are. And I actually, the only way I got those plans was because I had some friends that were in those neighborhoods that snapped off pictures and said, hey, this is what they're planning on doing. I had no clue what that looked like. So to piggyback on what Mary's saying, give us as much information as you can, even if it's just something, this is what we're thinking about doing, because right now, no plan is far worse than just a concept of an idea, maybe. Thank you.
Let me remind the council of something here, because if we don't control this now, we're going to have a problem down the road. During a public hearing, we should hear all the input, not respond, but at the end, you'll have a chance to respond to all the comments. Because if we start going back and forth, we will be here till tomorrow, okay? All right, so next on the list, Nancy Milford.
Okay, officially I object to the proposed rezoning for all 3 parcels. For the one you're going to listen to tonight, and just to explain a little planning to you guys, what is happening is they're going to delay it, and then they're going to come back. They're trying to get that front parcel rezoned to R3.
Nancy,
So,
not the
Okay.
audience, please.
I'm addressing
Please,
both.
I need you to address the
Okay, so they're
council.
trying to get the front one rezoned, because if they get that tonight, they're going to get access to that other site. So this is very, very important. Let's see. I'm providing my typed comments to this proposal, both zonings. And I've heard every possible line and manipulation in the field of planning and engineering to override resident objections to bad development. This is, one of the lines is, if you didn't want a development around you, you should have bought the property. And that's like the husband blaming the wife for him having an affair. Another tactic is that purposely misleading the residents with rumors, AKA it's a Walmart, with using planning and legalese. And anyway, there are many reasons this should not be rezoned. I'll just tell you that right now, from an engineering standpoint and from a planning standpoint. One is compatibility. What their land use plan shows is that this should be zoned B2, which is the local professional, which it is, so there would be no reason to rezone that to B3. It is not compatible with what's around it. And I brought it, I'm not going to go into the history. We've already been down this road, Bass Pro Shop. It is a noose around our neck. It's an albatross in planning. And everything that has been promised, not this developer, but the previous developer told us that we were going to get, sales tax and this and that. And so the city borrowed $30 million. They did a CID anyway. So the developer didn't put that much in. So we've got this hanging albatross that's never been fixed. This developer is doing the same thing. He's from Montgomery. Isn't that nice to know? Because there's always lovely contacts in Montgomery. But also they've proposed a project in Chattanooga, which is already tied up in lawsuits. There's conflict of interest. Another point to it is I would like the mayor and David Connor to make sure that they recuse themselves or get an opinion from the State Attorney General's office and the Ethics Commission of whether, I understand it's going to be a grocery anchor. That's what they showed on their plans. You are a food distributor, so I want to make sure that's very clear. I want to make sure that David Connor does not speak on planning issues, that the planner is the
Wind it up, Nancy. Been over 3 minutes.
Okay. The planner is the only one to speak on planning issues. There's every reason this site, that whole development should not be soils, steep slopes, control of water. It's going to take out infrastructure on Spanish Main. The engineer of record did not walk Garrison Ridge. I asked him. He did all of this from aerial view. I read the staff report. On the staff report,
Okay, Nancy, wrap it up, please.
on the staff report, it was very vague and unclear, but there are numerous reasons, and I'll be happy to tell anyone why this should not be developed.
Thank you for your comments. Treasurer Adams. Please hit that speak button and give us your name and address, please.
My name's Treasure Adams. I live right off Spanish Fort off 225. I've just moved, so I haven't learned my address yet. I'm sorry. But I work with Mobile Baykeeper. I'm here speaking on behalf of them tonight. So good afternoon, Spanish Fort City Council and Spanish Fort residents. My name is Treasure, and I am here representing Baykeeper, an organization dedicated to defending and reviving the waters of coastal Alabama. Today, I stand before you to express environmental concerns regarding the proposed rezoning. Wetlands and streams play a critical role in our ecosystem. They act as natural filters for pollutants, provide essential habitat for wildlife, and help manage floodwaters. Upon reviewing the National Wetland Inventory data, it appears associated wetland traverse this property and lead directly into Mobile Bay. Rezoning and subsequent construction would cause adverse effects on the ecosystem benefits the wetlands on this property are providing. Firstly, increasing impervious surfaces such as roads, parking lots, and rooftops can significantly disrupt the natural hydrology of the area. In an agricultural setting, much of the rainfall is absorbed by the soil, allowing it to percolate slowly into the groundwater system. However, in a business development, the increase in impervious surfaces prevents this natural infiltration process, leading to a higher volume of stormwater runoff. This rapid runoff can overwhelm existing drainage systems, increasing the risk of flooding in nearby areas, especially during heavy rainfall events, which is very common here in Baldwin County. The natural capacity of the land to absorb and slowly release water would be diminished, resulting in more frequent and severe flooding. Additionally, the velocity of stormwater runoff is increased, causing erosion of stream banks and further degrading water quality. Preserving the integrity of our wetlands and streams is not only beneficial for the environment, but also for the health and safety of our communities. It's clear that the community does not want this property rezoned as well. It is both your job and mine to listen to and serve the interests of the people we represent. We advocate for a denial of the rezoning for the reasons I have mentioned and implore the council members to do the same. Thank you for your time.
Christina Saya. Did I say that right? Okay. I'm sure it won't be the first one I stumble over tonight.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Christine Sy. I live in Spanish Fort Estates. I am here to oppose the ordinance 625-2024 and 626-2024. I ask that my speech be entered into the minutes of the meeting and will provide a copy to the secretary to that extent. I am also the author of the petition to halt the rezoning of land from R1 to B3 in Spanish Fort. In the last 13 days, since we found out about this, we were one of the last people to know, we have raised well over 1,000 signatures in person and online. Like many of the residents assembled here tonight, I was not familiar with this request for rezoning until a couple of weeks ago when a friend happened to mention it at a bunco party. So I began to do a little research. In August, the land use application was submitted to the city by Mr. Argo on behalf of both Platt Investments, which is that small piece on 31, and PMB LLC, which is the big piece. PMB also owns the other big piece that backs up to Spanish Main and the two little pieces that abut General Lee Circle, which is why this is a bit of a concern because PMB owns, we're surrounded by it, basically. So this is a concern for us. Yes, the Planning Commission has reviewed it and recommended no to the big one and possible to the little one. The developer's request to rezone this land to include all parcels owned by both Platt and PMB to B3, one of the broadest zoning categories, allowing from everything from discount stores, grocery, nightclubs, liquor stores, warehouses, gas stations, pawn shops, and even cemeteries. The developer has since shared site plans with area residents indicating the incorporation of both Platt and PMB land into a single multi-use development to include an anchor grocery store, an oil change station, and several small strip mall-type stores. Essentially just what we currently have on the other two corners of this already heavily trafficked intersection. Tonight, you will hear from residents of this community who will provide nearly a dozen separate and valid reasons to oppose this ordinance, to include significant negative impacts to the environment, traffic congestion, historic land loss, wildlife, public safety, crime, property values, natural waterways disruption, endangerment to our children, loss of small businesses, and loss of peaceful enjoyment. I ask you to weigh these points of opposition against the desires of a single developer who can only offer one reason to vote for this money. And while the city could also make money through taxation of the developed business, that same dollar could come from properties developed in currently zoned commercial locations. Frankly, this rezoning makes no sense at all to me. It would almost appear as though the developer were trying to use the Platt property on Highway 31 as an opening to access the entire PMB acreage for further future development, well beyond what has already been revealed. At this point, I would like to read an excerpt from Baldwin County Zoning Ordinance 1.1.
If you would wrap it up, we're at the 3-minute mark.
I tell you what, then I'm going to skip that, and I'm going to actually go to something else. Earlier, I can't remember which one of the council members said this. They said there really isn't that much difference between B2 and B3, so I am actually going to read the ordinance for B3 from Spanish Fort, Alabama Zoning Ordinance. 5.20 B3, General Business District. This district is intended to provide opportunity for activities causing noise and heavy traffic, not considered compatible in the more restrictive business districts. These uses, pardon me, I need new make glasses. These uses also serve as regional as well as local market and require location in proximity to major transportation routes. Very high production and processing activities are included or get included. So my point is that while it was said a little bit earlier that there's not that much difference between B2, which is your dentist office, your doctor's office, your bank, well, not your bank, and B3, which is significantly more intense, I beg to differ and offer that. Thank you.
Susan Nance.
Susan Nance, 30977 Parapet Court. I understand there are rights to develop on your property. However, while researching, I found the City of Spanish Fort's comprehensive plan, which was also mentioned while I attended the Planning Commission meeting, and the staff report indicated that this would be deviating from the plan with the potential of this rezone of R1 to B3. And quoting from the introduction of this plan, what this means to our city, by following it, this plan is designed to guide decision-making concerning many key issues and opportunities relevant to the citizens and future of Spanish Fort. This was created as a tool to follow. Outdated or not, I agree there are other areas for this type of use in the city. And this type of comprehensive plan to me is what brings the city, you all, and us residents on the same page. And so for me, that's kind of what we look at when we purchase our properties, what else is around us. And also for me, it's the traffic living in that area. Thank you.
Bryant and Donna Thompson.
Donna Thompson, 30806 Parapet Court. I'm here tonight for to voice a personal commitment to our community and a personal investment for our community. I grew up in Stapleton, Alabama. I was in a farm. I grew up in a farm. My father's a farmer. My mother's a registered nurse. I was the last of 6 children, lucky to be in college at all. But I did graduate from the University of Alabama, and I practice now. My profession has grown. I work for a dialysis company, and I actually cover now 3 states, and I serve 3 different states in that space. You know, I really was lucky again to be at the University of Alabama and graduated. I had to pay off student loans, and I did that all myself. You know, being raised on a farm really ensured that that I understood the importance of hard work and determination, and that's why I was there. So my husband and I, he'll speak in just a second, you know, we worked hard, we saved diligently, we didn't squander our money, and we have chosen to invest in this community with the hope of a peaceful retirement. We purchased our home and land with the understanding of the property behind us was zoned for housing. Rezoning it to B3 would not only diminish our property values, but also permanently scar our hopes of a quiet retirement. And a no vote is critical to protect the investment that we have made in our dreams. We urge the council to prioritize thoughtful, sustainable development that aligns with the values and needs of our community. A no vote on this rezoning will ensure that our voices, infrastructure, safety, and environment are respected. Thank you.
My name is Bryant Thompson, District 4, 30806 Parapet Court, Spanish Fort. I'm here to voice my firm opposition to the proposed rezoning of the properties by Southeast Capital Partners to a Business 3 or B3 classification. This proposal poses significant risk to our neighborhood and fails to address key concerns of the residents. The lack of clear, definitive answers provided at the November 14th meeting only exacerbate these issues. Key concerns that I have: lack of development specificity. To date, there's been no clarification about what we developed under B3 zoning classification, only vague possibilities. Without specific plans, residents are left to speculate, which heightens the anxiety and distrust. If their aim was to inflame an already agitated citizens, they accomplished that. Traffic impact. Traffic in our area is already overburdened, and added to the B3 development will exacerbate the situation. While a traffic study is suggested, this is insignificant to address the current and future realities of the increased congestion. The Spanish Fort zoning ordinance that was just read to you already outlines what will happen if this area is rezoned to B3, or even without a traffic study. The outcomes are clear and not hypothetical. Existing zoning code predicts outcomes. It's no secret what the rezoning will accomplish. Our own Spanish Fort code tells us what it will be: a high-traffic, high-noise area. Drainage and environmental risk. Concern about drainage from parking lots and impacting the Mobile Bay remain unaddressed. The presented topographical map offers no new insights or solutions. Inadequate barriers between developments and residents. Proposed barriers such as Leland cypress trees or wooden fences are insufficient. Existing examples like a dilapidated wooden fence that's near our own Walmart illustrates how poor barriers lead to litter accumulation, create safety risks such as homelessness encampments that are in the back of the Walmart parking lot today. Now, not for the hypotheticals, real risk. Decreased property values, as my wife has said. The rezoning will significantly harm property values as evidenced by similar developments in other areas like Midtown Mobile. Several neighbors have already expressed intentions of selling their homes and leaving Spanish Fort if this rezoning is approved, confirming that the real immediate need and impact. Threats to safety and quality of life. Increased crime and noise associated with such anchor stores developments are well documented. My wife and I have worked for over 30 years to make Spanish Fort our forever home. This proposal threatens not just our largest investment, which is our home, but our sense of safety and community. Request to the council, please vote against this rezoning proposal. Combining these parcels under B3 zoning sets a dangerous precedent and paves the way for irreversible negative impacts on our community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Brad Bass.
Brad Bass, 30814 Commander Court here in Spanish Fort. In my near 40 years living in this community, much like every one of you that sits on that dais, we've seen changes both good and bad in Spanish Fort. This very room in this building packed tonight, which it hasn't seen and probably since the doors opened, was only a dream when this city was incorporated 31 years ago. Many of you, like me, shot the breeze with Bobby Wilson for years. We rode our bikes to Papa John's to get snacks, Cokes, whatever it might be, played softball barefoot at Malbus Ballpark, got gallon tubs of ice cream from the K&B Drugs on the corner. That was all part of life. Our growth has seen beautiful parks added to our community, so our kids have more opportunities than we ever had. There's a brand new state-of-the-art elementary school that you could almost hit with a rock from here that could have only been dreamed of when I wandered those outdoor halls many years ago. Dr. Agnes Smith chasing behind me, shooing me to class. I was a blue and gray hawk back then. That was a thing before toros, if you guys that are new here don't know. We were hawks back then. But the growth hasn't always been easy. Thoughts, grandiose visions for our community have left us with empty buildings at the Spanish Fort Town Center, cleared land that has been forgotten, just waiting to be built on by a new business that could potentially bring tax revenue to the city. The Eastern Shore Center sits with a revolving door of tenants that come and go, and empty storefronts are everywhere to be seen. Which begs the question, why new development? Why the next new thing? What impact will it have on our community? Well, we know based off the developer site plan that people in this room will have a new shopping center with a building or buildings close to 100 feet to their backyard. We know that it would take a minimum, according to the developer at the Planning Commission meeting, a minimum of 100,000 cubic yards of dirt to even start building on this property. But the developer says bringing all that dirt, moving all that earth, will not have any effect on the wetlands that sit on the property. What about the deer and the wildlife that are captured on trail cams in our neighborhood almost on a daily basis? I think we all know what will happen to them. The Civil War era landmarks that are on the land, you can add those to many more that have been bulldozed in this area of the city. Besides the impact on the land, how will this development impact our community? The traffic nightmares the city faces will only get worse. At the east end of town, next to Rockwell Elementary and the Malbus Mall, we see wrecks, Facebook posts daily about how bad the traffic is. So duplicating what a new shopping development would be next to another elementary school makes perfect sense. What else is Highway 225 used for? Well, it's a potential hurricane evacuation route. During the summertime when there's a wreck on I-65 or the Bayway, where is traffic diverted? You guessed it, 225 or Highway 31. Twice a day, 5 days a week, we watch officer bumpers direct traffic as parents leave and bring children to school at Spanish Fort Elementary. He dodges cars that don't pay attention and fly through the school zone. How does that change with the highway potentially being 4-laned? How does that change?
Mr. Bass, if you'd wrap it up, please.
At a minimum, he will now be dodging the increased number of 18-wheelers making deliveries to a development. Finally, I would ask what the impact on our current locally owned small businesses would be. Will Piggly Wiggly and Rouse's be able to survive with a new Walmart or grocery store across the street? Will locally owned Ace Hardware be able to make it if there's a Home Depot across the road? Will Karen Kite at Medicap be able to survive if there's a Walmart pharmacy close enough to hit with a 9-iron? Will Cheryl's Cafe be able to survive when the new development has yet, I'm sure, another fried chicken place, coffee shop, sub shop, who knows? But the council want to make the decision to potentially put all of these locally owned businesses under, and for what? A developer from Pike Road, Alabama to fill his pockets and cut down trees and bring us something we don't need? Does the council want to figure out what to do with a giant empty Rouse's building or a giant empty square footage at Piggly Wiggly?
Mr. Bass.
Our city's comprehensive plan has spaces designated for all these potential stores. Luckily for everyone, a lot of that space sits empty now as we speak. I would just like to say, when he met with our neighborhood in Lee Circle Thursday night, the last question I asked Mr. Argo was, would you want this in your backyard? He couldn't answer that question, and he told me he wouldn't answer that question, which to me is a no answer. And I would ask every one of you that sits on that dais, regardless of where you live in this town, would you want this development 100 feet from your backyard? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Melinda Williford.
My name is Melinda Williford, and I live with my husband in Spanish Fort Estates for the past 33 years. I ask that my speech be entered into the minutes of this meeting and provide a copy tomorrow to the city clerk. Basically, thanks to the Mobile Bay Keepers and other speakers before me, most of the concerns that I had have been met. I won't repeat them. The concern that I have is living in this community so long, and the fact that we raised both of our sons who still live in Baldwin County, and 4 grandsons. 2 are still in the public schools systems here. But our kids growing up had run of this place and explored the woods with their friends. My son, who now lives in one of the impacted subdivisions, has memories of exploring the wetlands and marshy bogs of the land at issue, and their 2 sons are enjoying these same nature activities of seeing deer, squirrels, possums, raccoons, and yes, turtles and snakes and all manner of wildlife. This wildlife have called this land home since well before the developers arrived. Folks living on Spanish Main, Cason Trace, and Garrison Ridge continue to routinely enjoy the mornings and evening visits of the wildlife living on that land that don't really have any place else to go. So right now I'm speaking on behalf of the people, the wildlife that has no voice at this meeting, has no voice in what's going to happen to their lands, and I'm speaking for them and the loss of wildlife, because if this land is destroyed, so will they be destroyed, not to be replaced. So I've seen basically the other concern is to withdraw this oil change situation, which has been discussed already, and the fact that at the planning committee, the developer that wants to continue to keep this ordinance on the books for change has requested that it be an oil change or a restaurant or whatever, we just don't know. And that's the concern I have, that there's so much uncertainty that if this person is not aware of what they want to build there, how can we even agree to rezone this? So I ask the mayor and city council to please vote no on these ordinances and to establish with the developer, especially on the oil change request. Thank you very much.
Kathleen Sparks.
Sparks. I live at 20 Smuggler's Gap, and that's on the corner of Quezon Trace, which will be strongly affected by the runoff from this. I've lived here 47 years. I have a beautiful paradise that I live in that I don't want destroyed by all the nature being affected. I love this area. I love Spanish Fort, and I don't want to repeat what everybody else has already said. For all the same reasons, I don't want it. I'd like for it not to be approved.
All right, I know I'm going to screw this one up. Claude V. Dudro Dolphin? Am I even close?
Yes, DeRue Dolphin, Claude DeRue Dolphin. I born and raised in Mobile, Alabama, and I left in '77 to move to Central Florida. And we had similar situations there. I moved back about 6 years ago, and I live on 67 Quezon Trace. And I told all my friends that I have returned. I've come to my sweet home, and this is paradise. I am lost in paradise. Other people have already spoken and listed the main issues that we have with this rezoning issue here. And as a member of the community, I'm reminded of a song by Joni Mitchell back in 1970. Pay paradise and put up a parking lot. You don't know what you got till it's gone. Thank you.
Christy McClellan.
Hi, good evening. The majority of my concerns to oppose the development have already been voiced. Mostly it's the environmental impact, traffic, and then also the abundance of existing vacant retail space that we already have. Thank you.
Thank you. Nasser? Nasser, are you here? Help me out with his last name. Pardon? I'm Kamosia? Hey, give me an effort. Hey.
Good evening. My name is Nasser Kamassai. Sounds like double E at the end, but I can spell it Kamassai. I'm also a resident of 30841 Parapet Court. I spoke last meeting. And my concern mostly been addressed with the majority of friends and neighbors. And I don't want to repeat all of those. However, my concern is someone who can have a few $100,000 or borrow a few $100,000 cannot keep this many people as hostage and do this every 6 months. So my request is not only hell no to the rezoning, how do we preserve all of these attendees, all of these conversations for this point forward? So this gentleman or his company or developer cannot come back in 6 months or 9 months and do this again. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of sacrifice on these people's family lives to come over here, oppose something for somebody's pocket benefit. So those are my highlights, and thank you for your time.
Terry Vincent.
Good evening.
My name's Terry Vincent. I live at 301 Spanish Main. Everybody should know me because I put signs on my mailbox all the time. I have a unique piece of property. A lot of people in the neighborhood call it the lake house because I have a huge pond behind my house. It's got a walk-across bridge, it's got a dock for fishing, and it's fed by the springs from that property that wants to get asphalted over. Don't let that happen. Please don't let that happen. I mean, this community has come together, and I'm so proud of all the people here. Please keep the wetlands in Spanish Fort. Thank you.
Kyle Weeks.
Yes, my name is Kyle Weeks. We live at 30836 Parapet Court. I'm here today to talk about just some peaceful and quiet living in our area. Mr. Bass covered a lot of the things that I was going to talk about as well, but I guess my ploy to you is, and I'm kind of going with what Mr. Perry said in your opening prayer, is that we'd have wisdom in the choices to make our city a better city. And I just pray that y'all would consider not accepting this rezoning proposal. You've got many, many residents back here that live in this area, that are invested in this area, and for the sake of a couple of people that want to invest in property for a selfish gain would not be wisdom, I don't think. We did attend the meeting on Friday evening, and I think I heard you mention, and also yourself, that there was no plans that were proposed to y'all at that time. Every proposal that we saw in that meeting, all of them consisted of another grocery store. And as Mr. Bass says, you've got grocery stores that you can toss a baseball to, all surrounding that area. And they may have a gas station that goes downhill from there, gas station, fast food restaurants, whatever they want to add to it. But we don't need more empty buildings in Spanish Fort. We have plenty of property that can be developed, and it would look healthier in our city if that was done versus trying to rezone something and create chaos in the communities that we want to call home. We enjoy our peaceful communities. We enjoy the living. We chose the Eastern Shore for the very reason that the quality of life that we would have over here. We moved over here 28 years ago. At the time, my uncle was state finance director up under Fob James. We asked for his input. We were moving from Louisiana. He said, don't stop in Mobile, come right across the bay for a reason. We're here for a reason. We lived in Daphne for a long time. Thankfully, we had the opportunity to move over to Spanish Fort. Now, not only do we, but my children call Spanish Fort home. Although my children went through Daphne, their school system, now my grandchildren are going through the Spanish Fort school system. We love Spanish Fort, and I just pray that what you prayed for wisdom, we also, as you said, want to make Spanish Fort special. Thank you very much.
I saw you earlier. You still here?
I'm Glennis Vaughn at 6865 Falls Church Court, and I'm here speaking as a resident for 25 years, moving from Mobile to the Eastern Shore for the better schools, quieter neighborhoods. And also I'm a director on the Falls Church Court Homeowners Association, which is located directly behind Rouse's. And yes, a lot of our neighbors hear the dumpsters being emptied nightly, so that is, that would definitely be a concern for this development. And on behalf of our neighborhood, I'd just like to say we do propose the development. on both parcels being changed. And I won't repeat anything else, but we do thank you for your time and for the community's support. Thank you.
Michelle Trace.
I just wanted to agree with what everyone else has said and just want my voice heard for a no.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Charles Powell.
Charles Powell, 6307 Garrison Drive. All of the opinions here have expressed my concerns very eloquently, I might add. And so Nancy, you can have all my unused minutes. But the one thing that I would like to say is that if we are going to vote on this tonight, I would request that we fill JR's seat so that we have a voice in this vote. And I would respectfully request also that you deny this rezoning. Thank you.
I just want to remind y'all, it has been withdrawn, so there will be no vote tonight if that's what you're waiting for. Okay. Jim Russo?
First off, thank you all for staying late. Appreciate your efforts. I moved up 25 years ago with my wife, Linda, from Orlando, Florida. And while I was down there, I was treasurer and president of the Chamber of Commerce, the Historic Society, the Rotary International, and the Civic Center. And part of what I did down there was to bring Rails to Trails to that area. So it was all about community and a walkabout city, a walk around city. So what happened down there was we had builders come in, what we called seagull builders. And the seagull builders would come in from out of town, crap, fly away. So we didn't particularly care for what they did, because what they did was they destroyed the community aspect and turned our town into a conduit. We were no longer able to have parades down Main Avenue because of all the billboards that went up, all the residentials that went away and became businesses. So now I move up here, and my recent jobs was with the Downtown Mobile District Community and the Historic Mobile and the Downtown Mobile Alliance. And we fought very hard for the downtown to become a walkable city. So when I heard about this occurring, it got my ire up. And I'm a former IRS agent, so when I heard that Walmart might go in there, I said, at least let me give you some information about what goes on there. A Walmart will move in, they will promise you jobs, they will promise you revenue, but what happens is you make concessions to give them a tax break. With predator pricing, Walmart drives out all the businesses. All those jobs dry up, all those tax revenue bases dry up, and Walmart is now at a lower revenue base, and we wind up again with a bad situation. So I say all that just to say thank you again for being here. At least I got it off my chest. I was here spoiling for a fight, but they withdrew, so I'm up here just like Mike Tyson now. So again, thank you very much.
Justina Burgett.
Hi, I am Justina Burgett. I live on Confederate Drive. I'm not the best public speaker, so give me a little grace. I am here today to express my opposition to the ordinance, which are completely irrelevant. I believe it's best to ask if my written speech is included in the meeting's minutes, and I can provide a copy of that with the city clerk tomorrow. My family has lived in the community for over 8 years. I moved here from California, from a very small town in California, which my being here and opposing this entire development should be say enough. Don't let it happen to you guys. But we have 4 children in which we homeschool. So as with every parent, we are always deeply concerned about the safety of our children and the safety of our home and the safety of our community. We feel that allowing a developer to develop commercial business inside a heavily and primarily residential community unnecessarily puts our family at risk for increased traffic accidents, crime, and I'm sure plenty of other things that I'm not thinking of. According to statistics, it's easily available online. Residential areas tend to have lower rates of personal and property crime, which commercial areas tend to have higher rates of violent crime, such as robbery, aggravated assault, and rape. Areas with major streets also tend to have higher rates of violent crime. Some studies even suggest that converting existing commercial parcels into residential can actually reduce overall crime. So to me, it doesn't make sense as to why we would do the opposite and increase the crime rate by rezoning residential into commercial ever, when we know that it increases overall crime rates. I see no need to expose our community to safety risks that come with this rezoning. It's too much of a risk with zero benefits to its residents. We do not need another grocery store. There are 6 grocery stores within a 5-mile radius of this area. 2 are already located at this intersection, and we do not need another oil change establishment. There is one less than a quarter of a mile from the intersection in Rouse's. In fact, we already have everything that we could possibly need, and for those looking for more, there is a big Walmart 3.5 miles from my home, a Publix 2.5 miles from my home, and an Aldi 3.4 miles from my home, and a Fresh Market 1.2 miles from my home, in which all are technically walkable, and adding anything more to this location just makes no sense. I understand that the idea of rezoning for top dollar is the goal for the developer, but I feel like my argument is still relevant, even though he has reclused his petition for now or for any future application. Spanish Fort is a historical and natural treasure. We do not want it monopolized by big multi-million or multi-billion-dollar businesses for the largest profit, so that someone who doesn't even live within the community can make profits off of our hardworking men and women, especially when we already have a mostly deserted shopping center already. Some things are just not worth the money. I respectfully ask my city council and the mayor to vote no to the rezoning land, which is irrelevant at the time due to his withdrawal. But please consider a permanent rejection of this rezoning if possible, or explain to us how we can pursue that. Sorry, I lost my spot. I believe that if the developer or any future developers want to come back in 6 months, it's ridiculous. But I have a different take. I believe that the citizens of Spanish Fort are up to the challenge. Each time, I believe that there will be more and more rejection. And I agree with, I believe it was Ms. Nancy, if there is any conflict of interest, please recuse yourselves from this vote or whatever the appropriate action should be, so that the citizens of Spanish Fort can have the confidence in the city councils.
Rachel Stubbs. Rachel Stubbs, I don't see her. Okay. Claude Daniel.
My name is Claude Daniel. I live at 19 Core Slocum Drive here in Spanish Fort. My wife and I have lived here for 18 years. We voted in every election that's come about. I would really like to see that property stay just like it is as far as the zoning. If anything, I think it would be more beneficial to the city and to the citizens if that was a green space of some type. It's a pretty piece of land. You can, and I think that would be more beneficial from the standpoint of just keeping Spanish Fort basically like it is, not permanently, but we just don't need that type of change that they're looking at wanting to do there. And again, I want to reemphasize too that the empty retail space and honestly the debacles that have occurred with some of the retail development is it has really hurt the look of the certain areas of the city out there by the interstate. And but anyway, I really think it would be more beneficial to be some type of green space. I know the city's got some property up the road on 225. I don't know where the money came from to buy that, but maybe some more money from that source could be used to buy this property and make it a green space for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nagel. Mike Baust, B-A-U-S-T, is that right? Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm just going to actually pose a question. I realize this has been withdrawn and you all are not voting on this. However, I'm sitting one row behind the current developer, and he continues to jot down his notes. Just for your information, you know he will be returning here. I dealt with a planned development in a former residence area that I lived in prior to moving here. My family has been in the Spanish Fort area for 32 years. I absolutely love it down here. I addressed this council approximately 3 months ago regarding a traffic situation on the 225 Spanish Main. The mayor informed me that there was work to be going on. There is now large equipment there that is about to deal with that particular intersection. We are also under the future development of 2 very nice park spaces along 225. If this type of a project was to actually move forward, are we not wasting money on the current improvements on the road that we're putting in now to only add an additional burden to what we're already going to see with this? I personally own some other vacant land within the city limits. I bought it under residential terms. I don't come in here and all of a sudden say, I have a developer that would like to now build a 14-story apartment complex on my residential land in order for me to turn a profit and actually backstab all of my neighbors. This was bought by the current owner as residential R1. It should remain residential R1.
Tim Dozier.
Hey, how are y'all? I'm Tim Dozier. I live at 30896 Parapet. I'm not going to repeat what everybody said. I spoke at the last meeting on traffic and property values and the grocery store aspect. I did want to point out something, though, that you had mentioned, Mayor, and that you had mentioned, Mary, and that is about the return of this request and just the transparency of it. I don't think at any point until a couple of days ago did anyone have any idea what was going into this thing. And I'm not sure how a vote could even be in consideration if you don't know what's going in it. It's kind of like one of the dumbest things that's said in politics. We had to vote yes to see what was going to be in it. I mean, I just don't see how anybody could even consider it without having full transparency and saying this is guaranteed what we're going to do here. Now you can know what's going to be in it to vote. Without knowing that, I don't even see how you could consider a request or anything in the future. And that's all I wanted to say.
That's the end of the list. Shannon, anybody else sign up? Okay, great. you on the list? Did I skip you? Come on up. Just point up. What's your name?
My name is Shannon Barnes, and I live at 30791 Commander Court. I am a lifelong resident of Spanish Fort. I was also a Spanish Fort Hawks girl, and I have seen so much growth and development in this area. I am not opposed to growth and development whatsoever, but there is a time and place for what needs to come in our area, and this development is not it. We need to think about what we want for Spanish Fort, for our city. This is our city, and we want to just look at like what Daphne is doing and Fairhope, and we don't need these big box stores coming into like a place like this right by a residential community. We have 2 grocery stores 2 minutes away from each other in vacant buildings. We also have so much traffic as it is. Increased traffic from these businesses will produce even more congestion. My property is adjacent to this parcel, and they had quoted a 20-foot buffer from the easement. That's not good enough. On another projected proposal was 33 feet. That's not good enough either. Other concerns affecting neighboring properties regarding rezoning would be lighting, noise, no zoning buffer for a residential property, flooding of the creek, and increasing sediment in the bay, and the list goes on. We strongly oppose this development as presented. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and I apologize. I skipped right over your name. So there was quite a few names on here. We have certainly, anyone else before I move forward? Nancy, you've already spoken, so no. You need to sign it. Come.
Hi, my name's Tom DeSanti. I live on Parapet Court. I've been at every session since October 10th, when the residents of Spanish Fort Estates and Garrison Ridge received the notarized letter from the developer 2 days before the session. I know that we're not here about 47 acres. That's great. We'll move on. We'll revisit when he comes back. My concern is that smaller parcel of land, about 3 acres. You guys are here voting on that because the city planners did their part, and they recommended, you know, not to move forward on the 47 acres, but to move forward on the smaller parcel of land. However, I feel like the city planner commission people were misinformed. If you go back to the original minutes on October 14th, one of the lady that sat over there in that session, she asked a gentleman in a black suit that sat there what the difference was between a B2 and a B3. He informed her the only difference was you don't have to come back to the city for corrections. So that was at minute mark 116. So if we go back to the original recording, we can see that. I'm not saying that he made a mistake or he lied. I'm saying that if he had correctly given the information to the city, would the planners have voted not a recommendation to proceed? I don't have that answer. We all make mistakes for sure, but I mean, I think that maybe the vote could have changed. And I know ultimately it's up to you guys, but the recommendation from the planners does weigh heavily. So that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. All right, I'm going to close this public hearing.
I'm Hugh Wilson. I live over here, 31500 Blakely Way. Just found out about this shortly, not long ago. Question I have is, we've talked about all this. This guy has withdrawn his thing for 2 parcels. Is all this discussion been on just those 2 parcels, or have we also been talking about the one he's wanting to go forward with?
Sir, we'll answer after we close the public hearing. We won't respond to you at this point. That's the way it works.
Okay, that's fine. I have one other thing to say. I lived over here in Lake Forest. They built Bass Pro Shop. When they built Bass Pro Shop, I had water in my house up to my windowsills every time we got a big rain. I sold my house and left. A lot of houses flooded. I know for a fact that piece of land right there is like a canyon going off the back of it. You got a guy sitting here who's got a lake down on the lower end. Where is that water going to go? There is no way to control it when you get 5, 6, 7 inches of rain. It's not possible. I learned that the hard way, just to let you know.
Anyone else? All right, now I'm going to close the public hearing. You know, we've had a lot of good comments. We certainly will take all of them under consideration. As y'all know, this item, this ordinance 685-2024 has been withdrawn. We'll have no vote on this tonight. I will tell you to look forward, because I feel like they're probably going to bring something back, and no, we can't stop them from bringing something back. They have that right. So I want to address a few things, and maybe I shouldn't address some of them, but one that really got under my skin a little bit was me abstaining from voting on this. I sell groceries to a lot of people in a lot of places, and one place is not going to help me at all. So it's not me making profit on something, and that bothered me a lot. Anybody that knows me knows better than that. Comprehensive plan is time to renew. We know we've got to renew the comprehensive plan. That showed it as residential 25 years ago, 26 years ago. Things do change. I'm not saying that shouldn't be residential. Don't take that the wrong way. I'm just saying comprehensive plan is due to be redone. Environmental studies, traffic studies, all those kind of things, even though we're not voting on this, would have to be done in order for that project to move forward. So, and the last gentleman, yes, if you get 5 to 6 inches of rain, it's going to flood. That is a fact, and it will everywhere. You know, people talk about, I heard something about a tax break. No, we don't, in Spanish Fort, we've never given a tax break that kind of, to bring people in. I know it was talked about the town center and the Eastern Shore Center about forming CIDs. You got to understand that is not a city debt in any form or fashion. And I'll also remind you that both of those centers contribute to the tax base of our city. The town center with Bass Pro Shop and the other surrounding areas contribute almost $600,000 a year to the city tax base, regardless of it not being built out the way we all hoped it will. And I do see things coming. There's been some things discussed recently that will help that center. We all know what that center needs. It needs more storefronts, more people in there. The city building pickleball courts in that area will help bring people into the town center. So I'm excited about where we're going. The Eastern Shore Center, yes, I think everybody recognizes that retail, they evolve, they go, they do that. But that center contributes over $1.2 million a year to our tax base. So it is a very valuable piece of property to this city. So those are a few of my comments. I'll open it up to some of the council members if you'd like to have a word or two.
I'm very pleased that everybody came out tonight, because it shows how much you care, not just about this one rezoning issue, but about our town. Please look at the city website every single Monday, because there is either a planning commission meeting or a city council meeting, and you'll see our agenda. Please make note of what we're going to be talking about, and if it impacts you positively or negatively, please come to a meeting and let us know your thoughts. We don't know what you're thinking until you come and tell us what you're thinking. And therefore, sometimes we have to make decisions in vacuums because this room will be completely empty except for Mr. Bernard Davis here on the front row. So I encourage you to please stay involved and let us know your thoughts so that we are making decisions that are in your best interest.
Similar note, it really is great to see all you guys out here tonight and participating in the process. The process goes on whether you're here or not, and we do have to make decisions, and we need your input on that. Like Mary said, I did want to piggyback on what the mayor said. There was a statement made tonight that pretty much questioned the integrity of our mayor and our attorney related to this process we're going through right now. I just want to say I've worked closely with both David Conner and Mike Millen for 12 years now, and I can tell you that I've seen nothing but professionalism, a selfless desire to serve our city. I consider it an honor to work with both of them, and I just don't want any of you, especially this large of a crowd, leaving here thinking that you can't trust the people on this stage. These are good people that give their time and give a lot of effort to serving you. So I just want you to know that.
I'd like to say that participation is encouraging. Many people have heard me say, get involved, get involved. Well, you guys did. You guys involved, and that is the first and the most important step. But just to let you know that, yes, we are not voting on this, but some of us have done an enormous amount of soul searching and a lot of research in the background, talking with engineers, Army Corps of Engineers. I've talked with people on Parapet. I've talked with people in various neighborhoods and so on. And the concern was very real, and I understand your concerns there. So just know that those did not fall on deaf ears because, quite honestly, some of them gave me a bit of heartburn myself. So thank you for showing up and participating.
I'd like to just thank everybody for coming out. Seeing how government works is it's hard to do sometimes. It's more like a mixing up a cake and seeing how everything goes, and it usually comes out great. But you guys coming out just shows what the community can do when it comes together and makes up their mind about something. And I really appreciate you guys coming out, and thank y'all for doing that.
All right. We will be moving on the agenda. As I mentioned, ordinance number 685, 2024 has been withdrawn. We'll move to ordinance number 686, 2024, an ordinance amending ordinance number 5196 of the City of Spanish Fort, changing the zoning classification of certain property located at 6625 Spanish Fort Boulevard, Spanish Fort, Alabama, from B2 to B3. Mr. Conner?
Mayor, this property is located adjacent to Highway 31 in the City of Spanish Fort. Casey, can you put the other map up?
Where is?
All right, for just, okay. Here we go, he's coming. The property owner has requested that the property located adjacent to 31 be rezoned from B2 to B3 in order to allow for potentially a oil change service being there or other B3 uses that may be authorized under the zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on October 14, 2024, and forwards a positive recommendation for this rezoning request. I think the vote was 6-2 in favor of that request. Just to outline a couple of issues. One, this has not been withdrawn by the applicant. The previous application was withdrawn by the applicant. There's a couple of questions that came up, Mayor, in the previous that I would like to address, if I could, just briefly. One of those is that there are approximately 40 or 50 acres together. If you see Lee Circle there, the PNB property goes around the north and the west side of that circle and also cuts over to that area. One of the things that we would be concerned about in any application is what the remaining intention is for the use of those properties in the future, depending on how they submit it. Most of that is wetlands and challenged topography, and there's some blue streams in there that the Corps of Engineers would not allow them to touch, and we would also be very opposed to anything that would change the hydrology in that area. So in addition, when the developer comes back, if they come back, we'd want to have input on what all of the 40 or 50 acres that are there that's owned by P&B, not just the portion that they've requested rezoning for. In addition, people have asked questions about the comprehensive plan. That is a tool, and it's a guide that's used to make determinations regarding rezoning requests. But just as zoning ordinance and other ordinances change over time, that plan is about 20 years old or getting close to it, and it's something that the city needs to look at as part of the process and review process to make sure it remains consistent. Someone asked if the previous comments that were made would be preserved, and all of the comments that are made tonight, unless we have a technical difficulty, are being broadcast on YouTube and I guess Facebook. Which one is it? Facebook. So all the comments tonight are being preserved and can be reviewed in the event an application is submitted again in the future. But I would encourage you not to sit back. If a new application comes forward, you need to make sure you participate in the process, because it will likely be something that's different, and you need to make sure that your comments are heard at that point in time as well. In addition to that statement, there was a question made about B2 and B3 zoning regarding requests made by a planning commission member here, and he referred to a guy in a black jacket over there. It's likely to be me. So I want to make sure we clear up something. I'm going to go back and look at that comment to make sure what it was, but my recollection was, and we talked about this earlier in the work session, was that it was presented to us that they were proposing to put an oil change facility there. And so the question was, that I recall answering, and we talked about, and I'll go back and look at that tape to make sure, was that what is the difference as it relates to the oil change use in B2 and B3. The discussion was being had that you could allow an oil change with Planning Commission approval in B2, and by right in B3 is what staff had mentioned and we were talking about. So as it relates to an oil change use, if it was allowed with Planning Commission approval in B2, you'd be required to get a subsequent approval by the Planning Commission prior to going forward. If the table of permitted uses allowed it by right in B3, then you would not have to come back and get Planning Commission approval for the use. You'd only have to go through the site plan review process. Upon subsequent review of the zoning ordinance after that time, we have determined that the automobile use is not allowed to be in B2. You only get to have an automobile use or oil change facility in B3 by right and in B4 by right. Planning Commission approval. B3 with Planning Commission approval, and B4 by right. And so unless this is rezoned, there could be no oil change facility there. So I just want to clarify that comment. My recollection was, and we had talked about that earlier, that it was a specific question as to why couldn't you have the oil change in B2. And the discussion was, we thought that you could, but you could have it by right in B3, and that appears to be incorrect based on what we discussed earlier. It's allowed by Planning Commission approval in B3 and in B4 by right. So I just wanted to clarify that up. Those were the discussions at work session, and we want to make sure we're clear about that. And so with that said, Mayor, this application has not been withdrawn. That is, the piece in yellow is what's subject to this ordinance only, and is available for a public hearing as well. And any person's comments that were made earlier as it relates to this site can also be taken under consideration by the City Council in making this determination.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Any other discussion from the council before I open up the public hearing for this item? Public hearing is now open. If you'd like to address us, please give us your name and address. Who are you? Speak. 3 minutes, Nancy.
Sorry, my name's Nancy Milford. I live at 135 Confederate Drive. I should have said earlier that, one, I want my comments included in the meeting minutes, and otherwise they don't get recorded. And I want to, I hate it when my brain does this, but I want to address two things. My concern with the recusing yourself from this, because if this ends up being an access and that other goes through, then if you have involvement, that could get dicey. And with David, my objection to his involvement in planning, he is not a trained planner, but he sits up here and talks as opposed to your planner, who should be making recommendations. Also, on this, on the comprehensive plan, your comprehensive plan that was in the planner's office, because I went over there and looked, says that is recommended to be local and professional. That is your existing comprehensive plan. Future comprehensive plans do not apply to this. So what you want to do on your comp plan in the future has nothing to do with this property at this moment that you are deciding on. So if you go forward with B3 on here, you will be not going with the guidance document that your residents, you know, they're assuming that's their guiding vision. So you will be compromising that. So, you know, at your own risk. So good luck.
Hi, Christine Tsai again. Just one little thing with regard to this piece of property. We already understand that this is a very marshy wetlands in behind this piece of property, and I recognize, in fact, Treasurer with Mobile Beekeepers, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. What's been proposed is an oil change station and/or a restaurant. An oil change station abutting an environmental wetlands area just doesn't make sense to me. My brain can't wrap itself around that we're even discussing zoning when it seems like an environmental nightmare is right there in front of me. So that's all I want to say is, yes, the zoning piece is interesting, but abutting a wetlands when we're already talking about water issues. So that's my piece on that. Thank you. And I do appreciate every one of you. I really, truly do. I know this is hard work. We don't show up when we ought to. I'm bad at it too, but thank you.
Anyone else for this public hearing?
Again, 30806 Parapet Court. I am at the Planning Commission. I think there was some confusion about how this was being laid out from being a B2 to a B3. But the way that we view this tonight and the way that we view this on the 14th is this is nothing more than an access point back to the property that they're trying to go in and build either a grocery store or a Lowe's or whatever it is that they want to do that abuts up all to our area. We strongly do not want that to be voted through. And I appreciate y'all listening. I know this has been hard for the community too, you know, and we don't relish the fact of having to fight this again, but we will. But we appreciate your time in doing this. But please vote no on the whole piece. We don't want any of it to change. Thank you.
Thank you.
With Southeast Capital Partners, we're the applicant on this particular location. We had proposed rezoning for a national brand oil change that requires a B3 as we understand it. We now understand that the correct process is if it gets rezoned to B3, we go back to Planning Commission for a special condition type of review that's an extra layer of protection, if you will, for council. And we're completely comfortable doing that. And we do have a favorable recommendation for the proposal coming out of Planning Commission already, and we'd like for the council to adopt also a favorable position. I would point out that we had a question or two before about access. The access, this property actually has two permitted driveways by the Highway Alabama Department of Transportation. In conversation with ALDOT, one of those driveways will be removed, and it'll be only one driveway remaining. It's most likely to be on the plan, the leftmost driveway, which would be just north of the B, as in boy. That's the driveway that's most likely to remain. It's a little further spaced from the intersection, so I just wanted to add that comment. And the actual driveway permit will come from the Alabama Department of Transportation for that. The property itself, I believe, is right at a little over an acre, maybe 3/10. Mr. Connor, I think there was a comment, it might have been bigger, maybe in some of the other comments I heard previously, but it's about an acre and 3/10. The left third of this property is already occupied by either drainage facilities that serve US 31 that belong to the Alabama Department of Transportation. There's also a sanitary sewer lift station on the property, and there's also electrical, pretty much major electrical equipment. So of the acre 3, approximately a third of it's already occupied by utilities or drainage features owned by others. So the actual area that can be developed is right around 8/10 of an acre. So I just want to offer that as clarification for council to consider that as well. It's a very minor use. As far as the zoning goes, we've obviously got adjacent B3. We're at a major intersection of 225 and 31. The B3 district is, in the zoning ordinance, is fashioned and oriented towards major intersections, which is where we are. And we think the adjacent land uses and zoning are compatible with the use that's proposed and the zoning that's proposed. And at that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to come back and answer those.
Good evening again, Nasser Kamasai. If this is truly going to be an oil change, how many oil changes the city of Spanish Fork needs? We already got a few right over here, the cross section. We got one right by the subway, just not even 500 yards away or 200 yards away. So is this a game that we're trying to change something from B2 to B3 and then have some hidden agenda come back up later? So I understand competition is good, but I really don't believe that's the fact that we are being told or the truth is being told. So, and then it's gonna again put somebody else out of business because there are already 2 gas stations with oil change facility there and a dedicated oil change right next to Subway and Rouse's Shopping Center. So I strongly am against it. I also like to know how those 62 positive comment came about, because this is the first comment we hear that there's a public hearing. So where those 62 comments came about? You mentioned that there was a planning commission had 62 positive recommendation or some sort of like. I'm sorry.
Yeah. The planning commission forwarded a positive recommendation, and a lot of times that's unanimous. And so I don't always say what the vote is. In this case, it was 6 in favor and 2 against. And I thought that was important for you all to know that it was not unanimous. So it was a 6-2-2 vote, positive recommendation.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said 62, so that's what, my apologies. So yeah, but again, I vote against it, and I'm believing that all the attendees are also against it as well.
Terry Vincent, 301 Spanish Main. If they get their foot in the door, you can kiss all that wetland goodbye.
Kyle Weeks, we still live at 30836 Parapet Court. I'm in sales, but I guess I'm getting into politics here. I don't know, but I guess just as a simple kind of guy, you've got a room full of people here that are very vested in this community. You made mention that you made $1.2 million in revenue from the Eastern Shore Center, $600,000, I think, from the Bass Pro area. That's wonderful. I'm sure Rouse is contributing to that too. I'm sure the Piggly Wiggly area is contributing to some too for the city. For somebody that don't even live in the city Someone that lives in Pike Road, and I'm sure the reason that he does that is because we know the nightmare that is going on in Montgomery right now. People don't want to live in Montgomery. They're flocking and leaving it to go to places like Pike Road. Good for him. But to let somebody like that, two people, come in here and destroy an area that you have a room full of people that are vested in this community. You have people like Rouse's and the Piggly Wiggly people that are being dedicated to this community to see it grow, to come in and they want to suggest a oil change place when there's one 100 yards away, which is going to wind up being another empty building. So what are you going to do? You're going to trade pots of gold for one for the other? I don't know what you're going to do. I mean, what is the purpose of that? There is no purpose except for them to try to rezone so they can get to that property later. So I would like to say vote no on this, and I'm sure that everyone here that lives in this area is going to vote no as well. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lawrence Burgett, Spanish Fort Estates. I just wanted to point out, I appreciate your time. First off, thank you for hearing us all out. Wanted to point out all the people that left. We all have kids, family, everything like that to take care of. I was a firefighter for the past 10 years. I understand a battle. This is a battle between residential and commercial, obviously. Commercial has all the time in the world. We don't as family members. So what I'm saying to this one is very obviously, if you vote yes on this, then it's a foot in the door. It's an inch given in the battle. So if you're saying yes to this, then you're saying no to all the people that didn't have time to stay. So I would appreciate if you go ahead and say no to this and shut the door and stop it now. Thank you.
Michael Baust once again, 835 Artillery Range North in Spanish Fort Estates. The zoning change request on this particular property must mean that there is a tenant that is under consideration by the developer that's looking for the change in this zoning. You just mentioned just a few minutes ago on the previous item that there was some promising uptick in conversations regarding the Bass Pro Center area as well as the Eastern Shore Center. If those uptick promising situations are actually occurring, the tenants that are actually looking at this particular property, why have they not been steered elsewhere from the city to say, hey, we have many other wonderful places to actually operate a business? Just like the other people have already recommended here, this is nothing but a solid foot for a double driveway. When that tenant bails on their contract with this particular zoning change, all it's going to do is be a two-lane road in and out to all that property back there. Thank you.
I'm Kelly Rogers, and I live at 15 Cason. And I'm going to speak because Montgomery's been brought up twice, and that is where I lived until about 3 years ago. My husband commutes 50 minutes every day to Pensacola so we can live in Spanish Fort Estate. He grew up in Atlanta. We are so happy here. First city council meeting I've ever been to in my life. Don't let this happen. Let me just speak on the oil change. I'm sure this is a franchise these guys want here. Take 5 and Daphne tore up my car. Wilson's, your local owned business, fixed the problem. They'll put a franchise in there that does not care about this city. He doesn't care. We do. We fight desperately for this community, all of these people here, because we know this is not good for us. You guys can't possibly think this is good for us either. And if you do, you're wrong. And we all have a say-so in who gets to stay up here.
Thank you, and don't make it your last council meeting. Come back. Okay. Great. Anyone else on this item?
Hi, I'm the guy that accused possible wrongdoing at the meeting a couple weeks ago. Anyways, just so everybody knows, this is the same developer that destroyed Midtown Mobile. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that. So I lived in Midtown Mobile, actually about 5 blocks from where they built the Midtown Publix, and we were promised this amazing commercial transaction. Publix or old trees were going to stay, the environment was going to be minimally impacted, there'd be no homeless people, nothing. If you guys go to Midtown Publix, Midtown Mobile Publix today, tomorrow, next week, check it out. It's not what was promised. They literally stopped the project because the construction company or the developer or whoever made mistakes and accidentally cut trees down at nighttime. So how do we not know that mistakes won't be made here in our town? So that's my only real concern is, what if we do this again? Everybody's talked about oil changes and whatever, but at the end of the day, I think we're all blind if we don't see this is the gateway to 47 acres. Now, what we can do is we can vote yes without a District 4 representative, which isn't fair at all. We could vote yes for that, and then the whole place is going to get packed again when he comes back early next year to get a yes vote for the other 47 acres. Or we just vote no, not have another oil change, restaurant, whatever, and maybe the guy just goes away. But one more note, didn't you guys just approve an oil change facility at the Publix 2 miles down the road? I mean, right, that would be you guys. So if you just approved an oil change facility 2 miles away, wouldn't it be fair to see if that oil change facility can survive in our ecosystem before we put another one up? Wouldn't that be fair to those owners? That's all. Thank you.
Sir, can I get your name and address?
Oh, yeah, Tom DeSanti, and I live in Garrison Ridge. I mean, if we give out our addresses, the developer likes to call people. He's on the record of calling citizens, so I would rather just not give out my street address if that's okay. You know.
I have a bad throat, so excuse my voice, but 2 things I agree about opening the door to that property.
Name and address.
Julia Bass, 12 Ironclad Port, which is 1 mile up to 25. Everywhere I go, I come down to 25 and make a right-hand turn on that corner by the bank and this property. Sometime there's so much traffic there that I have to go down and make a U-turn because I can't get over. Has anybody else had that trouble? You cannot get over. It's so hard at certain times of the day. That would be my number 1, would be the traffic issue of myself daily trying to turn. Number 2, I recently talked to the manager of the oil change place next to Rouse's, that shopping center. What is that? Less than a mile from this location. They are not busy. They are hurting. They are hurting for business. The manager told me that. I ran into, he was getting balloons to put out to try to get attention. I wasn't at the oil change place, but he was buying balloons that day, getting them blown up, guys, to put in front of his oil change place to try to attract more people there. So what are you doing to that oil change place that's been there how many years? 10, 15 years probably. Those people have been in business. So do you slap businesses in the face that have been there trying to do work? That's all. Thank you.
Anyone else? How does commission?
No, the public.
Well, is that your question? How does the public's comments
Correct.
come to us.
Because there are already been a dozen or so just on this particular. I'm sure all the other prior speakers were against this as well. So my question is, how much does our voice count from that 62 favor that you're talking about? Thank you.
Naturally, we have a public hearing to hear your input. That's the purpose of the public hearing. All these men and ladies up here make their decisions based on what they've heard, in addition to facts that, you know, whether it's another business, a competitor, those things are not really factors for their business models. That's up to them what they want to do. We certainly look at it and think about it, but it's sort of measured, and David, you can help me with this a little bit. You know, everybody makes their own decision based. The recommendation came from the Planning Commission that does this on a day-to-day basis, and yes, their recommendations does make an impact to us, if that answers your question.
Yeah. So purposes of I guess to answer the question, under the Code of Alabama, it requires that any changes to the zoning ordinance have to go through the Planning Commission process for recommendation first, and then it comes to the City Council, who ultimately makes the decision. And the reason that you do that is it gives the public an opportunity to participate, create a record, because the applicant comes in and submits an application saying what he wants to do. Then we have staff planners and and engineers, not staff engineers, but engineers that review and provide comments as part of that process. I review it from a legal standpoint and make it. And then at the public hearing at the Planning Commission level, the Planning Commission hears what it is and then makes a recommendation. Again, that's a recommendation. The decision is ultimately made by the City Council, and in order to provide more opportunity for public input to hear what you all have to say, there's a second public hearing that's held at the Planning Commission level, and at the City Council level. And I assure you that in this particular case, because of the amount of discussion that's been had, the City Council has been very attuned to that. And the developer asked for some additional time to meet with property owners, which was a good thing to allow for that to happen, and then asked that the hearing be postponed. But instead of postponing the hearing, because the City Council wanted to hear your comments, they said this hearing would go forward and there'd be a subsequent hearing in December to give another opportunity for people to come participate. So I assure you that the City Council and everybody involved is very attuned to the comments that are made and takes them accordingly. Again, you know, sometimes people give comments that are very directly on point. Sometimes they're not, and you just have to balance that just like you do a presentation made by an applicant. But all of you made very good comments.
Okay, Nancy, you continually disrupt the meeting. Would you please stop? I'm asking you politely, please, okay? This is not your forum to speak. You can speak during public participation and speak during public hearings, but to disrupt the meeting, it's got to stop. Please, please, please. Okay. Yes, ma'am. We will make that decision come December 2nd when we have the second public hearing. We could possibly take it then. It's up to the council to decide if they want to take it at that point or not. Okay? It could be. I'm saying it's up to the council. If we want to make a motion to vote on the second, that's what we do. They could hold it over if they want to hear more information. Okay?
Just for the record, Mayor, if I may, for clarification purposes, the minutes of a meeting do not say word for word everything that's taking place. But I assure you, everybody here listens and everybody takes notes as to what it is. And then one of the reasons that the City Council went to recording the meetings and making them live is because you can go back and listen to them again on Facebook. They're on there. And so every effort will be made to make sure that's happened. The minutes are likely to say, and I don't write them, but you know, generally what they'll say is there was overwhelming support and opposition to this. And then you have all the meeting minutes and the recommendations. And so I assure you everybody is listening. So.
Is there a reason we're not voting on this tonight?
because we did advertise both of them, that we'd have 2 public hearings, and I think it's right that we continue the echo.
Hearings.
Correct. The first item was withdrawn.
Okay.
This one was not. We still advertised 2 public hearings for this item. I think we should continue with that
I see what
path.
you're saying. Okay.
Okay? Any other comments from the council?
Yeah, just, I would like to address just a couple of things. I just want to be clear to everybody that what you've got right now is you've got a piece of property that's currently zoned for business. And on our master plan and our comprehensive plan, rather, it is, this is our business corridor. So somebody could go and build something right now as a business, put a business there by right, whatever exists in the zoning that it currently is zoned at, which is B2. All that we're considering on this is whether or not to change that zoning from B2 to B3, which allows a greater variety of things, including an oil change. I'm just speaking to a couple of things that were brought up. If, you know, would this create traffic that's not there yet? Yeah. Regardless if it's B2 or B3, it would create some more traffic in and out. But I'm not sure I see any uses. I'm going to study it a little bit more. Any uses that would really fit in that on that lot that with a B3 would produce more traffic than would by a B2, because that's essentially what we're considering here. We're not considering whether or not it's going to remain green space or be a business. You think about it, if you own that property and it's worth some money, would you want to just, you know, out of the goodness of your heart, leave it as green space? I don't know. That would be very kind if you did, but we're not at liberty to compel someone to do that. As for whether or not an oil change facility is a wise business decision or not, you know, I can tell you I worked for a major retailer for a lot of years, and before we'd go open a new store, we had some really sharp bean counters that would look at all of the factors and whether that location would be successful or not, including are there other competitors there that are going to keep us from surviving. And so we weren't going to spend a lot of money if that wasn't the case. So again, that's, you know, that's a decision that's really it's important for somebody to consider. I'm not sure that it is for us, but I would also say for the suspicions that this is just an access to another piece of property, what we try to do, and I say we, I know whether I'm serving on the Planning Commission or here, which I do both, it's my job really to consider each request on its own merits. And I think we owe that to anybody that's coming to us with a request, including you one day if you were to come to us with such a request. So, you know, we just have to be fair. And then one last thing, there was a comment about trees being cut down maybe that shouldn't be and that sort of thing. People do make mistakes. We've actually seen that in the city before, I think with the Dollar General that went on 31 up near the high school there. What happens in that case? There's reparations for that. You know, you've got to go plant some other trees. You've got to pay some fines. You've got to, you know, so we stay on top of them, and there's a major disincentive for a developer to do the wrong things. We try to keep people doing the right things. So just wanted to address those things and make sure that people knew that.
I want to piggyback a little bit on what Kurt has mentioned here. It really, when you look at that property, and I am familiar with that property has got a retaining wall back there, and I think as the developer said, a good hunk of that is not developable. So pretty much what you're looking at, I don't know if any of you go to Dr. Kern next door to the dry cleaner or whatever, but you're looking at a spot that's about that amount. You're not going to get very many cars in and out of there, so your traffic is going to be negligible at best. The other thing I wanted to address is it's the access to get to the back. Well, right now it's zone B2. Right now there is nothing to stop that owner who is an individual owner of that particular parcel. There is nothing right now, nor in the future, that prevents him from doing it right now as it sits. There is nothing that stops it. Short of somebody in this room coming up and buying that property, there's nothing that stops that. So the access will always be there. as long as somebody owns that property and they say, sure, I'll give you that. There's deeded access to them. There's multiple ways that could happen, but it is owned by somebody. It is B2, but yeah, that access is going to be there, and it's always going to be there.
Public hearing is closed. Public hearing is closed, sir. Come on. Well, we could be here for another week if y'all like, but come on, Mr. Bath.
So I won't be as long-winded as the first time. First, I'd like to say thank you to everybody that came out tonight. The last municipal election 4 years ago, 1,010 people voted in the city of Spanish Fort, which is a shame. So the fact that there were probably 20% of that number here tonight, I think says a lot about the people that are involved in this conversation. So one question I would ask, do we have access to the site plan? Because I know he did submit that to Casey for the Planning Commission. Is there any way to pull that up while we're talking about this property? I'm sorry, my name's Brad Bass, Commander Court in Garrison Ridge. And the reason I ask this, I understand this is the piece of property right now that we're talking about. The other thing has been withdrawn. The site plan he shared with us Thursday night, Lee Circle and Garrison Ridge, regardless of oil change or anything else, that site plan, the entrance to this property in the back is the way everything was configured on his site plan. So regardless of whatever shell game is being played with an oil change place or anything else, I think that should at least be pulled up so everybody, including the council, can see what he was showing us as two neighborhoods, what this property would be developed into. Yeah, so it would be to the left side of the screen, over your left shoulder, Mayor McMillan. No, over your left shoulder. That's Highway 31, and that access right there is the property you guys are now talking to. That is very clearly a driveway entering to this property. That's the large property at the back. So you can call it oil change, you can call it Starbucks, you can call it Chick-fil-A. My kids would love that. But undoubtedly, it's a driveway to go to the 47 acres in the back. So regardless of what we're being sold, whether it's January, February, March, July of next year, it's going to be a big whoops surprise. Now it's a driveway to 47 acres that affects everyone that showed up in this room tonight. So, Mr. Argo, I wish you nothing but goodwill. But I think it's pretty clear the people of Spanish Fort don't want you in Spanish Fort. You can be in Pike Road, you can be in Montgomery, you can be in Knoxville. We don't want you in Spanish Fort. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing, okay? All right, anybody else on the council have anything to say? This is on the agenda for a public hearing on the December 2nd meeting. It may or may not be put on the vote. We have heard you loud and clear, I can assure you, okay? So with that, we'll move to the next item on the agenda unless you want to say something.
Yeah, we have to vote on December the 2nd. This thing cannot continue to hang around.
I don't disagree with you, Mayor. Mary, I don't think anybody disagrees with you. It needs to happen. I'm just saying it has the opportunity if the council so decide. If the council decided that it could be held over, it could be held over. That was my point. Okay. All right, we're going to get back to order this meeting a little bit here. That's the end of ordinance number 686 to be held over to the second. Moving to ordinance number 687, 2024, an ordinance amending ordinance number 5196 of the City of Spanish Fort, extending the rezoning of certain properties described lots 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, and 11 of Woodside Business Park, Spanish Fort, Alabama, from R1 to B2. David?
Mayor, this is a proposed ordinance amending the zoning ordinance to extend the rezoning of certain lots in Woodside Business Park. This is property that was rezoned to B2 down near the Woodside Business Park on Highway 31 near Shambo Curve. The property owners have requested that the rezoning be extended for an additional year.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Any discussion from the council? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve ordinance 687, 2024.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Smith,
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
Brabner.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, the ordinance is adopted. I'd like to introduce ordinance 688, 2024, an ordinance altering and establishing the district lines for boundaries for the 2025 and subsequent municipal elections. David?
Mayor, this is a proposed ordinance altering and establishing the district lines and boundaries for the 2025 and subsequent municipal elections. Based on the 2020 decennial census that was issued by the United States government, the population of the City of Spanish Fort has grown to a point at which you have to consider redistricting based on the growth in population, in particular the growth in population on the eastern end of the city. This ordinance would establish districts based on census block numbers in accordance with recommendations and assistance given by the State of Alabama Reapportionment Office. A copy of the maps, proposed voting district map, the overall map is attached. District 1 is outlined in blue. District 2 is outlined in green. District 3 is outlined in yellow. District 4 is outlined in orange. And District 5 is outlined in red. In addition, there are larger maps showing just the districts themselves. All of this will be available for public comment and review prior to the passage and consideration by the City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Discussion from the council. We'll have a public hearing on this item December 16th at the City Council meeting to hear comments from those in favor or opposed to the proposed ordinance. I'd like to introduce ordinance number 689, 2024, an ordinance amending ordinance number 5196 of the City of Spanish Fort, changing zoning classification of certain property located at 10880 U.S. Highway 31, Spanish Fort, Alabama, from R1 to B1. David?
Mayor, this property is adjacent and just to the west of David's Catfish House on U.S. Highway 31. The property owner has requested that the property be rezoned from R1 to B3. The property came into the corporate limits of the city under the last local legislative act and was zoned R1 by default. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on November 12, 2024, and forwards a positive recommendation for this rezoning request.
Thank you, Ms. Connor. Discussion from the council?
The ordinance states from R1 to B3, and that was the request that was submitted by the applicant, and that's what the Planning Commission heard.
So you telling me the agenda was wrong?
No, the agenda's okay.
It's the ordinance.
The ordinance is wrong. Okay.
The recap is incorrect, but the ordinance is correct.
Okay.
So it appears that the agenda item statement has a typo that says B1 instead of B3. The ordinance as published as part of the public notice and the hearing from the Planning Commission is that from R1 to B3.
Any discussion from the council? We'll have a public hearing on this item December 16th to hear any comments from those in favor or opposed to the proposed ordinance. I'd like to introduce ordinance number 690, 2024, An ordinance amending ordinance number 5196 of the city of Spanish Fort. David?
Mayor, the city has been approached by some different folks regarding the possibility of establishing a business for the sale of and display of storage sheds. Review of the table of permitted uses does not clearly state how and where those types of uses and sales would be allowed. This will establish a new section in the special provision section of the zoning ordinance, section 7.13, which would establish restrictions on the sale of sheds and the display of storage sheds, including that there would be a maximum of 8 sheds or models allowed on a property if the sales were allowed, that the sheds and models could not be used as a sales office or for storage or for any other purposes. It would require adequate space for loading and unloading of storage sheds and delivery trucks, that no facility for the sale would be allowed to be placed in a flood zone or other areas prohibited by the city, and they would not be allowed to be manufactured, built, or assembled on the property, but only allowed for sale and display. In addition, it requires that there be a minimum of 21,870 square feet of lot area for the purpose of establishing such a use. It also establishes the amount of frontage and spacing between driveways in the event that a storage facility or storage sale facility was allowed. In addition, it establishes buffering requirements for properties that would be adjacent to residential areas, as well as restrictions on signage, parking, and exterior lighting. If this is approved as an amendment to the zoning ordinance, these uses would only be allowed with Planning Commission approval in B3 and B4, and by right in M1, the industrial district. The Planning Commission forwards a positive recommendation for this amendment to the zoning ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Discussion from the council?
If they have more than the 21,000 square feet, why do we care if they have more than 8 sheds on the property? I mean, if they've got a big piece of property, they should be able to put more sheds on it.
Mayor and Councilmember Bradley, the discussion at the Planning Commission level was that this was going to be a first step in to see how this worked. I personally observed, and several of the Planning Commission members did too, where some of these places get a couple, 100 or more storage sheds and buildings, and they stack them in there very tightly. Some of it can be kind of unsightly, and our idea was that if it was going to be allowed, that we wanted to have certain restrictions so that it didn't get in a position or out of hand as it happened.
Yeah,
so the idea was to create some limitations on the amount of buildings you could have on a particular piece of property.
But I think the number of sheds should be somehow correlated with the 21,870 square feet. I mean, if you're going to try to put 100, you got to have acres and acres and acres. But I think 8, I think there's got to be some kind of a ratio between 8 sheds and the 21,000 square feet that allows for more if they've got more square footage.
This came as a recommendation from the Planning Commission, so that's why it was brought forward this way.
Yeah, so in the work session, when you can have discussions about whether or not you want to amend that or not. That's the way it came from the Planning Commission. Again, it's just a recommendation. You all ultimately get to decide how it's drafted and how it goes forward.
This will be on December 16th. We'll have a public hearing on this item also, so we'll have time to address those concerns, Mary. Anyone else? Moving to ordinance number 691, 2024, an ordinance amending ordinance number 5196 of the city of Spanish Fort, Alabama. Mr. Connor.
Mayor, this is a proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance to address and amend the reversionary clause. Several years ago, the city adopted a reversionary clause that said all property that's rezoned would have to be devoted to a use within that zoning classification within 12 months. Or it would revert back to the original zoning unless the city council granted a 12-month extension. The main reason and purpose for that was because in certain instances, property owners or developers would come to the city and request a zoning classification that may be a change or transition in an area. For example, they might have 100 acres of property and they request that 20 acres of it be rezoned to allow for apartment complex. And then over time, the apartment complex might not have been developed, and 4 years passes, 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years passes. They've sold off the other 80 acres, and now there are uses that might be considered incompatible, whether that's residential, whether that's other retail developments, and that zoning, if you looked at it today, might not be a good consideration. And so the reversionary clause required those uses to be appropriated or used within a 12-month period of time. There are some zoning classifications that don't have necessarily the same negative impact, such as single-family dwellings, R1, low-density dwellings, R2, and then the B1 business district, B2 business district, and B3 districts often are not zoned unless it's in an area that allows for that type and there's use going on in that area. This would change the zoning ordinance and state basically that if it's rezoned to a high-density apartment, manufactured mobile home district, the B4, a large-scale retail district, hotel motel district, the industrial district, or the telecommunications tower district, then it would revert back, if not used for that use within 12 months or within 12 months of an extension granted by the City Council.
Discussion from the council. This also will be on the December 16th public hearing agenda to hear any comments in favor or opposed to the proposed ordinance. I'd like to present Resolution 1458, 2024, a resolution amending the employee pay classification guidelines. David?
Mayor, this is a proposed resolution to amend the employee pay classification guidelines adopted for administrative and other pay scales. In particular, it's adding a job title and grade for Parks and Recreation Supervisor and Public Works Supervisor. Other than that, there are no changes to the administrative pay scale and classification guidelines, and there are no changes being made to the Fire Department or Police Department scales.
Thank you, David. Discussion from the council. You know, as the city grows, we've had new positions. Supervisors are needed for park and recreation. As I mentioned in the work session that our parks have grown tremendously and continue to grow between Valor Park, which is coming on the Causeway, Honor Park on 225 will be coming. Loyalty Park, our dog park, is in the process of being built. Integrity Park has been expanded to double the size. Spirit Park has been renovated, and pickleball court is right around the corner. So we've got a lot of opportunities, and we have certainly grown in the park and recreation and public works side as the need for that has happened in our city. Any other discussion from the council? Do I have a motion?
Motion to adopt Resolution 1458, 2024.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Smith.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
Brabner. Mayor.
Yes, the resolution is adopted. I'd like to present Resolution 1459, 2024, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement of engineering services between the City of Spanish Fort, Alabama and Goodwin Mills K. Wood, LLC. Mr. Connor?
This is a resolution that would authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement with Goodwin Mills and K. Wood, LLC for the purpose of providing engineering services for TAP grant project number TAPAA TA22919, which is a construction of a sidewalk on Jimmy Faulkner Drive between Tanninger and the Spanish Fort Middle School. A copy of the proposed agreement is attached, and the amount of the cost estimate for the ALDOT is a total estimated cost of $54,737.15 for engineering design services associated with that project.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Discussion from the council? Do I have a motion to adopt?
Make a motion to adopt Resolution 1459, 2024.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Smith.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
Brabner.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, the resolution is adopted. I'd like to present Resolution 1460, 2024, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Goodwin Mills and K. Wood for engineering services for the 2024 resurfacing of various streets in the city of Spanish Fort. David?
Mayor, this is a continuation of the city's policy regarding the resurfacing of streets within the corporate limits of the city. It has been the city and administration's policy to contract with an engineering firm to provide services for the purpose of ranking the streets and determining the ones that need to be repaved and what order that would be in. This would authorize the mayor into a contract with Goodwin Mills and Kaywood to provide engineering services for those 2024 resurfacing projects for the city of Spanish Fort.
Thank you, David. Discussion from the council. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve Resolution 1460-2024.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Smith.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
Brabner.
Yes.
Adopted. I'd like to introduce Resolution 1462, 2024, a resolution appointing the municipal prosecutor for the city of Spanish Fort. Mr. Connor.
Mayor, the city of Spanish Fort has had a municipal court for a number of years, and Carol Kemp has been the municipal prosecutor and has done a great job in serving the city of Spanish Fort in that position. She has been, will become a circuit court judge for Baldwin County, Alabama, so this position will be vacant. The city of Spanish Fort requested applications from individuals interested in serving as municipal prosecutor, and the city council conducted interviews of those applicants. Based on discussions in the work session, it was determined that Trey Canada would be presented as a possible municipal prosecutor to replace Ms. Kemp as she takes the bench. And so this resolution, if approved, would appoint Trey Canada as municipal prosecutor for the city of Spanish Fort.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Discussion from the council. So we've been very fortunate that we've had one prosecutor in our history that has served the city so very well. And as I mentioned in the work session, we'll have a reception December 16th. I don't know if all these public hearings, she may not want it that day, but December 16th to recognize Ms. Carol Kemp for her years of service to the city. We certainly are proud of Trey Canada. He's been pretty quiet over there today. When I guess he could have jumped up and joined us, but I think Trey would make a good candidate. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve
Mayor,
Resolution 50.
Yes.
Hold on just one second. Since this does involve an amount for salary, I think it'd be appropriate to suspend the rules if you're going to adopt it at this meeting.
Okay. Wasn't so noted on my agenda, so I didn't know that. Do I have a motion to suspend the rules for immediate consideration?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
One thing I was going to point out on, just to make sure that we have the resolution changed, it's not a reappointment as it's listed on the ordinance. So.
Any further discussion on suspending the rules? Roll call.
Smith.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
Brabner.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. Do I have a motion to adopt?
Make a motion we adopt Resolution 1463, 2024. I'm sorry.
Second.
14, let me take that back. 1462, 2024.
Discussion. Roll call.
Smith.
Yes.
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 Brabner.
Yes.
Mayor.
Resolution is adopted. I'd like to introduce Resolution 1463, 2024, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter an agreement with Bay Point Drywall and Construction for construction of a pavilion at the Loyalty Park in the city of Spanish Fort, Alabama. Mr. Connor.
Mayor, one of the projects that the city has under construction at this point in time is a dog park that is located south of Spirit Park on property owned by the city. This would be a contract with Bay Point Drywall and Construction for the construction of a pavilion at Loyalty Park. A copy of the proposed proposal is attached as Exhibit 1, and the cost of the project is $60,000.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Discussion? It's being introduced tonight. Will be on your December 2nd agenda. I'd like to introduce Resolution 1464, 2024, a resolution of support for Baldwin County Bicycle and Pedestrian Connectivity Plan. David?
Mayor, for a number of years, the Baldwin County Trailblazers have been working to increase connectivity and provide for bicycle and pedestrian paths and plan across the county. They have submitted a proposed county bike pedestrian connectivity plan, and the county commission and other entities have requested that the cities review and determine whether or not they would be in support of that proposed plan. If this resolution is approved, it would express Spanish Fork's support for that connectivity plan.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Discussion from the council? Do I have a motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt Resolution 1464-2024.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Smith,
Yes.
Gustafson,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Brabner,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, the resolution is adopted. I'd like to introduce Resolution 1465-2024, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter an agreement with LIG Services, LLC, for the provision and installation of sod at Loyalty Park in the city of Spanish Fort. David?
Mayor, this resolution would authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement with LIG Services, LLC, to provide for the installation of sod at Loyalty Park in accordance with the approved site plan and the construction of the improvements at that site. A copy of the proposal is attached to Exhibit 1 in the amount of $13,573.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Discussion from the council? It's being introduced tonight to be on your December 2nd agenda. I'd like to introduce Resolution 1466-2024, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Mobile Fence Company, Inc. for provision and installation of fencing at Loyalty Park in the city of Spanish Fort. David?
Mayor, this resolution would authorize the execution of an agreement with Mobile Fence Company, Inc. for the provision and installation of fencing at Loyalty Park, which is the dog park. A copy of the proposal is attached as Exhibit 1, and the amount of the fencing is $22,167.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Discussion from the council? It's also being introduced tonight, will be on your December 2nd agenda. I'd like to introduce Resolution 1467-2024, a resolution rejecting bids for Spanish Fort Community Center parking lot repaving project here at the city of Spanish Fort. Mr. Connor?
Mayor, the parking lot at Spanish Fort Community Center is in need of some maintenance and repair and repaving. This was sent out for bid. There was only one bid that was received, and the recommendation from the engineers and from the administration is to reject that bid because it was well in excess of the pricing and estimate that we received. It has also been determined based on discussions with bidders and also an engineer that some of the requirements so far as how and when the work was to be performed were a little more rigorous. And so as part of that process, there'll be changes made to the bid specs, and this project will subsequently be rebid again.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Any discussion from the council? Do I have a motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt Resolution 1467-2024.
Discussion? Roll call?
Smith,
Yes.
Gustafson,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Brabner, Mayor.
I'd like to introduce Resolution 1468-2024, a resolution authorizing the mayor of the city of Spanish Fort to make grant application for Federal Emergency Management Agency Assistant to Firefighters Grant. Mr. Connor?
Mayor, the Federal Emergency Management Agency is providing safety grant funds to assist with resources to purchase equipment and train personnel. The Spanish Fort Fire Department has been applying for this grant for a number of years. This resolution would authorize the mayor to make an application for the Assistance to Firefighters Grant Funding Program to provide equipment and resources to the Spanish Fort Police Department. This would be in conjunction with GMC Consulting LLC, GMCM Consulting LLC in preparation of the grant application documents.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Discussion? Being introduced tonight to be on your December 2nd agenda. I'd like to introduce Resolution 1469-2024, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for assistance with grant application preparation between the city of Spanish Fort, Alabama and JMCM Consulting LLC. David?
Mayor, the fire department has been using JMCM Consulting LLC for a number of years to assist in the preparation of applications for the FEMA Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program. This resolution would authorize the mayor to enter into a contract with them to provide those consulting and application services.
Thank you, David. Any discussion from the council? Being introduced tonight, be on your December 2nd agenda. I'd like to introduce Resolution 1470, 2024, a resolution authorizing the mayor to approve a grant application and execute a memorandum of understanding on behalf of the Spanish Fort Fire Department. David?
Mayor, the Spanish Fort Fire Department, police departments, and other emergency responders throughout Baldwin County and really throughout the state in most instances utilize a P25 Phase 2 radio system that allows for interconnectivity and communications between the agencies. This would authorize the mayor to execute a memorandum of understanding on behalf of the Spanish Fort Fire Rescue Department and other fire departments in Baldwin County to apply for grant funding to purchase communications equipment that will be used to participate and use those equipment with the P25 program. There are some discounts that can be received when buying in bulk, and so it's better for the agencies to participate together and apply for these grant funding applications as well as the purchase.
Thank you, David. Any discussion? Being introduced tonight, be on your December 2nd agenda. I'd like to introduce Resolution 1471, 2024, a resolution rejecting bids for the Spanish Fort Town Center Pickleball Complex project in the city of Spanish Fort. David?
Mayor, this is a proposed resolution rejecting the bids for the Spanish Fort Town Center Pickleball Complex. There were several bids that were received in bid opening on November 13, 2024. It's our understanding that the bids were approximately $300,000 in excess of the cost estimated budget. It was determined based upon a review of the pickleball courts at Daphne, the ones planned for Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, and other areas, that there are some engineering changes that can be made that would significantly lower that price and still perform well. And so this resolution would reject those bids, and you'd move forward with a revised bid spec and a subsequent rebid.
Thank you, David. Discussion from the council? Do I have a motion?
Motion to adopt Resolution 1471, 2024.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Smith?
Yes.
Gustafson?
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
Brabner? Mayor?
Resolution is adopted. We have one more item for the agenda. It's ordinance number 692, 2024. Mr. Connor?
Mayor, this is a proposed ordinance appointing a city council member to fill the District 4 City Council seat for the remainder of the term. The City Council requested applications from those persons that are qualified or electors residing in the district that desired to serve, and scheduled interviews and conducted interviews of the potential applicants and potential city council members. This ordinance at this present time does not have a name in the ordinance. The discussion would need to be had, and a determination would need to be made regarding who to appoint. The city has 60 days from the date of the resignation from the council, which I believe was October 15. And so you've conducted your interviews, and so in the work session it was discussed that a procedure that you might want to follow would be to have, I guess, each council member state their, I guess, preference or first place, a person they would want to consider, and then depending on the first place person for each one, decision would be made whether or not to make a motion to appoint that person or whether or not further discussion would be made. And that's just in an effort to get the discussion going so that you guys can deliberate.
All right, so the way I understand this procedure, Ms. Gaines will ask each district rep to make their recommendation for their first choice for District 4 councilperson's seat. Everybody in tune to that? Okay. Ms. Gaines?
There we go. Mr. Smith, who is your first choice?
First, I would just say thank you to everybody that applied, and it was a pleasure meeting all of you. And And it was a tough decision, it really was, but my first choice is Mr. Steve Wynn.
Mr. Gustafson, who is your first choice?
Again, we had great candidates. I mean, I don't think we could have gone wrong. I mean, we really didn't, but I felt that Steve Wynn was my choice.
Perry?
Yeah, piggyback off these guys. Candidates were amazing. We learned a lot about the citizens here in Spanish Fort and how they appreciate serving the city. So, but I'm going to choose Mr. Stephen Wynn.
Ms. Brabner, your first choice?
As the only person sitting up here that doesn't drive a pickup truck,
Maybe you need a truck.
or have outside plumbing, I choose Susan Nance.
For the record, I neither drive a pickup truck nor do I have outside plumbing, but I am not a council member. Mayor, who is your first choice?
Let me certainly tell everyone that applied for this position, we had 7 qualified candidates, and it was not easy to make a decision on this. I tell you, we're very blessed in a lot of ways with a lot of good-hearted, good people in our city, and that's what we need to recognize. For my pick, for the first choice for filling in the position for Mr. J.R. Smith, and let me commend him for his many, many years of service on this council. He was on the Planning Commission for 8 or 12 years, I'm not sure which, and then he served on the council for about the same amount of time. He served well over 20 years for this community, so thank you, Mr. Cluis J.R. Smith, but my pick is Mr. Steve Wynn.
All right, Mayor, then for the purpose of taking a vote, somebody would need to make a motion, if that's the nomination that someone wants to make, to insert his name in the ordinance and then approve the ordinance to appoint Steve Wynn as District 4 council member.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve, is this ordinance 692, 2024? To approve ordinance 692, 2024 to appoint Mr. Steve Wynn to the District 4 City Council position.
Second.
Discussion? I'm not sure he knows what he's getting into. Roll call, please.
Smith?
Yes.
Gustafson?
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
Brabner? Mayor?
Yes, the ordinance is adopted. Congratulations, Mr. Wynn. Any other business?
When does he start?
I think he starts at the next meeting. We swear him at the next meeting, let him be subject to public hearings. Any other business come to council tonight? Do I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Meeting adjourned.